a single white number appears. 133 million. That's how many phones Nokia sold in a single quarter. 133 million phones in 3 months, more than any company in history. They were worth $150 billion. They owned 50% of every smartphone on Earth. They had 60,000 employees. They were, without question, the most dominant phone company that had ever existed. And in 6 years, they were gone. This is not a story about losing a market. This is a story about a company that looked at the future and blinked. About arrogance, about denial, about a decision made in a boardroom that erased one of the greatest brands in human history. This is the story of how Nokia destroyed itself. Nokia was never supposed to be a phone company. Founded in Finland in 1865, not as a tech giant, as a paper mill. For over a century, they made rubber boots, cables, televisions. They reinvented themselves so many times you could be forgiven for thinking they were several different companies. But in the 1990s, something clicked. Mobile phones were becoming real, and Nokia, this strange, shape-shifting company from the frozen north, became their undisputed king. The Nokia 3310, released in 2000, didn't just sell, it became a cultural phenomenon. 126 million units. You could drop it from a building and it would laugh at you. It was basically indestructible. By 2007, Nokia held 40% of the global mobile phone market, over 50% of smartphones. In Q4 2007 alone, they sold more phones than their 3 biggest competitors combined. The stock price hit $40 per share. The company was worth $150 billion. Nokia was untouchable, or so they thought. January 9, 2007, San Francisco, California. A man in a black turtleneck walks onto a stage and says 5 words. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. Nokia executives watched the announcement and they laughed. Too expensive, too fragile, no physical keyboard? Who would buy that? One Nokia executive was reportedly heard saying, "That thing will never work. Nobody wants a phone without buttons." They weren't just wrong. They were catastrophically, historically, terminally wrong. The iPhone wasn't just a phone, it was a pocket computer. It had an app store, a marketplace where developers could build anything imaginable. It had a massive glass touchscreen. It redefined what a phone could even be. And Nokia? Nokia kept making phones with buttons. Within 2 years, Android appeared. Google handed its operating system to every phone manufacturer on Earth. Samsung, HTC, Motorola, they all had access to a modern app-based ecosystem overnight. The smartphone revolution didn't just happen, it detonated. And Nokia was still standing in the crater holding a phone with buttons. The problem ran deeper than just one bad product decision. Nokia was addicted to Symbian, their old operating system, built for a world that no longer existed. Symbian was designed for simple apps and physical keyboards. Developers hated working with it. The code was a nightmare. But Nokia refused to let go. Why? Because they had always won. Because they had been number one for so long, they had forgotten what losing felt like. They thought the Nokia name was a shield. It wasn't. It was a blindfold. By 2010, the numbers were impossible to ignore. Market share hemorrhaging, stock price in free fall. The company recorded its first quarterly loss in over a decade. Panic set in. In September 2010, Nokia did something desperate. They hired a Microsoft executive named Stephen Elop as their CEO, the first non-Finnish CEO in the company's history. He was supposed to be the man who saved Nokia. He wasn't. In February 2011, Elop sent an internal memo to Nokia's employees. It was titled Burning Platform. It leaked within days and became one of the most infamous corporate documents ever written. He compared Nokia to a man standing on a burning oil platform. The man had two choices: stay and burn to death, or jump 30 meters into the freezing North Sea and hope to survive. The memo was brutally honest. Symbian was dying. Their next-generation operating system was too far behind to matter. The platform was burning. 2 days later, Elop announced his solution. Instead of jumping to Android, the operating system already crushing everyone, Nokia would partner exclusively with Microsoft and use Windows Phone. The room went silent. Windows Phone had less than 3% market share. Its app ecosystem was a ghost town. Developers weren't building for it because there were no users. There were no users because developers weren't building for it. Nokia had just bet the entire company on a sinking ship. The results were immediate and brutal. In Q2 2007, Nokia held 50.8% of the global smartphone market. By Q2 2013, just 6 years later, that number had collapsed to 3.1%. The stock price fell from $40 to under $5. The company's market cap dropped from $150 billion to $19 billion. Nokia had lost 87% of its value. 32,000 employees lost their jobs. The Nokia Microsoft Lumia phones were beautiful, excellent cameras, stunning design. Nobody bought them because nobody was buying Windows phones, period. By 2013, it was over. Nokia had no path forward. On September 3, 2013, Microsoft announced it would acquire Nokia's phone business for $7.2 billion. $7.2 billion for a company that had once been worth $150 billion. And Stephen Elop, the man who had presided over this historic collapse, walked away with $25 million payout. In Finland, there was outrage. Some called it betrayal. Others called it incompetence. A few whispered something darker, that Elop was a Trojan horse sent by Microsoft specifically to weaken Nokia so they could buy it cheap. No evidence ever proved it, but the suspicion never fully went away. Even the Microsoft acquisition didn't save Windows Phone. By 2015, its market share had fallen below 3%. Microsoft eventually abandoned mobile entirely, writing off billions and laying off most of the Nokia employees they had just acquired. The phone division that Nokia had spent decades building simply was erased. Here is the part that should terrify you. Nokia knew. They had touchscreen prototypes before the iPhone. They had App Store concepts. They had internet-connected devices. They had engineers who saw exactly where the world was going. Those engineers were told no, sent back to their desks, overruled by committees, drowned in bureaucracy. Nokia didn't fail because they were stupid. They failed because they were successful. Success is the most dangerous drug in business. It convinces you that what worked yesterday will work tomorrow. It makes you slow. It makes you arrogant. It makes you laugh at Steve Jobs standing on a stage telling you the world is about to change. And when the world does change, and it always does, you're the last one to see it coming. From 50% market share to 3%. From $150 billion to $7 billion. From 133 million phones a quarter to 0. Not because the market shifted, because Nokia refused to shift with it. The platform wasn't burning, Nokia was. And the next time you hear a giant corporation say they're not worried about the competition, remember Nokia. Remember what it costs to be too comfortable to be afraid.